Hey, how you going there, peeps? This is Phil here from MTG Kiwi Philosophy, bringing you a new deck all the way from NZ. This is my blue-white control token deck that I like to call Token Up a Storm. Peace out, peeps. Enjoy the brew.
Token Up a Storm.
Okay, let's kick this off. I'm going to show you the two cards that I built this deck around, and that is 4 copies of Metallurgic Summonings and 4 copies of Anointed Processions. It's obvious why we have the Anointed Processions in there. We want to double any tokens that come into play, and this is where we trigger with the Metallurgic Summonings. Metallurgic Summonings is perfect for us being able to drop in token creatures where they are XX constructs equal to the casting cost of the spells we use. Using Metallurgic Summoning's second ability, paying 2 islands and 3 others, you can exile the summonings, return all instants and sorcery cards from your graveyard to your hand, but you can only activate this if you have 6 or more artifacts in play. But this shouldn't be a problem with all the spells we're going to be casting. So let's kick it off. We're going to start with our smallest spells and work all the way up to our biggest. And of course, like any good control deck, we're going to be having a lot of counter spells. So we're going to go with 3 copies of Essence Scatter and 4 copies of Negate. We very well could be using these spells pre-summonings. This is what we need to do anyway. Remember, we can always get those spells back further on in the game, back from the graveyard, using the Metallurgic Summonings. The early game is very important for us. We're going to run a very low creature cost, I mean real low, and we're going to be spelling out the death of our enemies. During the early game, we have to remember our life total is not everything. Not everything until we're dead. Use it to your ability. We can gain life back if we need to. Sustaining damage, enabling you to stabilize the board, is always important. Now, if we do have Metallurgic Summonings and Anointed Processions in play, using Essence Scatter is going to be fantastic. Here's why. If we Essence Scatter our opponent's creatures, and we have a Metallurgic Summonings in play and an Anointed Processions, that's 2 2/2 constructs that we can have in play. However, if we have 2 Anointed Processions, it's double. Double again with every Anointed Procession in play, and so forth with the Metallurgic Summonings as well. This goes the same for the Negates as well. So we have got a really good chance of doubling up on a lot of token creatures here. But we don't want to spend too much of our card choices on too much low curve stuff. So we're going to take it a step up, and we're going to go with some 3-drop spells. And here's the first, and we're going to go with 2 copies of Disallow. Now, I do love Disallow. It is a 2-drop with blues and 1 other, but it's instant speed. This is key, instant speed. We can counter a target spell, activated ability, or triggered ability. That's good, it's giving us options. This will also trigger the enchantments if we have them in play. So we'll end up with a 3/3 construct, or more dependent on what we have in play. Now, we are a blue-white deck, and we have been using a lot of blue cards. So we need to start stepping into our other colors. So we're going to go with 4 copies of Sandblast and 4 copies of Sky Whaler's Shot. Now, the reason we use these 2 spells is because they are at instant speed. Sandblast is good offensively and defensively, dealing 5 damage to target attacking or blocking creature. Sky Whaler's Shot, it destroys target creature with a power 3 or greater, and we get to scry 1. So we can search for those lands, those other cards we may need that will help us get through this early game. Once again, these cards are 3-drops. So those are 3/3 token constructs that we will be creating with the Metallurgic Summonings and also the Anointed Processions. Now, we've got enough removal and we've got enough counterspells. And I did speak earlier about us needing to have some sort of life gaining. So we're going to go with 2 copies of Sanguine Sacrament and 2 copies of Fumigate. Now, Sanguine Sacrament is great. It's instant speed. It's a 2-drop white with X. And we can gain double the life of X equal to the mana we can pay for this spell. Now, 2 planes plus X is going to be the power and toughness of our constructs that will come into play after we've cast this spell. It's really good, gaining double life and then also being able to gain all of these token creatures. And if you're feeling a little bit overwhelmed with your opponent's creatures, hey, let's whip out that Fumigate and wipe the board, gain some life. Now we all know that a good all-round deck needs to have counters, removals, life gain, but what are we missing? We need to get some drawing in. We need to get some draw phases. We need more cards in our hands. Now how can we do this? We'll do this by 3 copies of Pull from Tomorrow. Pull from Tomorrow once again is an instant speed spell. 2 blue with X. So we'll draw X cards and then discard a card. We can discard land if we've got plenty of those in play. But the point is that we're drawing more cards into our hand. You're probably wondering why all of the instant spells. Well, the reason for having spells at instant speed is so defensively, if we have a Metallurgic Summonings in play and an Anointed Processions, it means that if our opponents attack us, we can cast an instant spell and drop a creature into play that can help us block. If we have a removal spell, even better. Destroy a creature, put a creature into play. At the end of their turn, creature's no longer affected by summoning sickness. Unfortunately, the synergy of the deck is kind of reliant on having the 2 enchantments in play at the same time. However, we can protect them by using our negates. To help with the deck, if we don't have a Metallurgic Summonings in play, but we do have an Anointed Processions, we're going to run with 4 copies of Proven Combatant. To me, Proven Combatant is a very underrated card. It's a 1-drop creature that comes into play with Eternalize of 6. Now, we can drop it in first turn. It can sit there. We can D up, D up, D up until we need to use the spells we can to get to that mid-game so we can start casting our spells that will trigger with our enchantments. Don't be afraid to chump block with it. That's what it's there for. Get rid of it. Eternalize it back from the graveyard. If we have Anointed Processions, then we double down on that. Lastly, we're going to go with 2 Planeswalkers. We're going to go with 3 copies of Dovin Baan and 2 copies of Gideon of the Trials. We're using Dovin for 2 reasons. The first reason is for his +1 so that we can -3 and attack one of our opponent's creatures and it can't use its activated abilities. We also want to be able to use the second ability he has, which is to gain 2 life and draw into a card. Now, it doesn't matter if Dovin dies, we're using him as a human shield anyway so that we can get to mid-game and start using our spells. If we get the emblem off, great. So the point is, stall, stall, stall. You use Dovin to stall. You gain life, you draw a card, fantastic. You neg a creature, he can't attack. Now we have our Gideons in there for a very similar reason to Dovin Baan. We're using him as a stalling tactic. We're not there to produce an emblem so we can win the game like that. We want Gideon's +1 to be able to prevent damage from a target permanent that would deal damage to us. And of course, if we've used a Fumigate and we've got Gideon in play, we can still attack. We use our 0 ability and we send him over for 4 damage. Now, before we get into our sideboard, we're going to talk about our lands. And we're going to go with 4 copies of Glacial Fortress and 4 copies of Irrigated Farmlands. In my opinion, Irrigated Farmlands is not the best dual land. However, it does have a secondary ability that we can use if we do get stuck with it in our hand and we don't need mana. And that is we can cycle it and we can get into a draw. Now lastly, our lands are going to finish off with 8 plains and 8 islands. Now let's move on to the sideboard. Okay, so the first 2 cards we're going to be using in our sideboard is going to be our life gaining cards that we've currently got in our deck. And that's 2 more copies of Sanguine Sacrament and 2 more copies of Fumigate. Now we've got these cards in here because we might need backup, we might need more life gain. If you're finding that they work in the deck, and some of the other cards could be taken out, you can always swap them out. Moving on, some more counters. We'll go with 2 more disallows and another essence scatter to give us that 4 for our deck. Now time for something different. We're going to go with 4 copies of Entrancing Melody. Now Entrancing Melody is not instant speed, it is sorcery speed. However, 1 in X, we can gain control of an opponent's creature where X is equal to its casting cost. This could be helpful, gaining control of your opponent's creature and gaining tokens for that. And finally, rounding out the deck with some more drawing, we're going to go with 1 more copy of Pull from Tomorrow and 4 copies of Glimmer of Genius. Now, Glimmer of Genius, 4-drop card, instant speed, scrying 2, drawing 2. It seems like it's a perfect fit for this deck. But the reason it's not in the deck is because we're trying to keep that curve a little bit lower so it can survive the early game. But yes, Very good for this deck. The downside to using Glimmer is that we don't have a use for the energy, so it is a little bit null and void. Well, that's pretty much it for me here at MTG Kiwi Philosophy. Thanks again for watching the video. If you like the video, share the link, subscribe, like it. Hey, do whatever you want. I'll catch you on the flip side. Ciao.